So the other day, we learned that Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, was back in the news because he was a victim of assault. So there was a lot of fake news floating around early in the wake of this attack, and we have since learned that it's basically all fake news. So the right was going with this argument of, well, actually, it was a gay lover, and Paul Pelosi was paying for gay sex, and something went wrong, and he ended up getting assaulted. That was the argument that the right was making. Now, by the way, let's just pause for a second to, just for argument's sake, grant them that, right? So Paul Pelosi is secretly gay or bi or whatever, and he's paying for sex, and then this psycho ends up attacking him. What would change in terms of the morality of the situation, right? Like, it would still be bad, it would still be an assault, and it would still be condemnable, and the person should still get time behind bars. Now, I guess the argument they're trying to make is that, well, that proves it has nothing to do with politics. But that is 100% disproven, because if you go through, and this has all been documented extensively, if you go through the social media history of this person who did the assault, something DePape, his name is, he was deep in politics. He was, drowning up to his eyeballs in conspiracy theories. There's stuff where he went, full QAnon. He believed in Pizzagate. Some of the most extreme, silliest conspiracy theories you can imagine, he was all in on. All in on, COVID denialism, all in on January 6th stuff. Like, this guy is just textbook off-balanced person, unbalanced person who went down the wrong rabbit holes and went full conspiracy theorist and is just off psychologically enough to actually act on those things. So even if you grant, which I don't, by the way, because it's been disproven, but even if you do grant, oh, it was a gay lover thing gone wrong, well, the attack still would have been political, because all the political stuff, this guy wanted to target the Pelosis. That's what they wanted to do. Looking for Nancy as well, right? So even if it was like some male escort managed to get his way into the house because Paul Pelosi wanted to have sex with him, but then he attacked him because he's politically motivated, that's still essentially the same situation everybody thought it was to begin with, right? Now, look, having said all that, it's not even true, the whole, gay lover thing, because the police have come out and they've, basically went through the events and basically said a lot of the rumors that started online are not true. Like, for example, they said, oh, they were found in their underwear when they were fighting. Not true. They were not found in their underwear. The cops said that's totally inaccurate. The other one was, you can hear Paul Pelosi on the phone saying, I don't know who this guy is, but also saying he's my friend David. Or my friend Dave. And people were using that to say, oh, look, he's not a stranger. It's his friend Dave, because, again, it was some gay lover who he was paying for sex, right? Turns out that all stemmed from the fact that Paul Pelosi was able to call 911, but the guy was there, so Paul Pelosi wasn't able to just talk to 911 and tell them all the facts. So he called 911 and had the phone hidden, and so he was trying to communicate with 911 by speaking in code while placating the guy who's directly in front of him. So any sort of weird contradictions in terms of the story all stems from the fact that this psycho broke into the house, is standing there, and Paul Pelosi's trying to talk to 911 while placating the guy and trying to not cue the guy that, hey, I'm talking to 911 right now. So that's where that stems from. But anyway, so this happens. Terrible situation, condemnable. I despise Nancy Pelosi. She's a corrupt goon. She's a neoliberal corporatist extraordinaire in the Democratic Party. That's irrelevant. I don't want her to get attacked. I don't want her family to get attacked. It's obvious, right? Anyway, so now this was Fox News' reaction in the wake of it. And just look at the way they talk about this issue. This is really something.
This is reflective of political violence that's happening in the country, or whether it's reflective of serious mental health issues in the country and violence in general across the country, or some combination of both. Kennedy?
I think you hit on it, and I think it is a combination of both, because I think where we're at, the president promised to bring down the tenor of political discourse in this country. That hasn't happened. People are more...
What the fuck does this have to do with Biden? How is this in any way, shape, or form connected to Biden? Oh, Biden uses divisive rhetoric and said he would bring down the tone, and he didn't. So you're going to take, what, random aggressive comments about how, hey, my opponents want to overturn the last election, and that's bad. So Biden saying something like that is, keeping the temperature high or keeping the tone bad, and that's leading to things like, it's ridiculous. This is a ridiculous point. It's absolutely absurd. Biden has nothing to do with this in any way, shape, or form.
We're divided. There are people who see words as violence, and there are people who it's very easy for them to cross the line and commit acts of violence like this because they are moved by their politics. When you combine that kind of rage, that sort of systemic cultural rage that we have right now that hasn't calmed down, with untreated mental illness, that's when you have things like this happen. And for anyone, whether it's a Supreme Court justice, the Speaker of the House, or anyone,
this is reflective.
Okay. So that's all that we got of the clip there. But yeah, she brings up Biden at the beginning. That makes absolutely no sense. In terms of the point about, like, having extreme political beliefs and mental illness, that could be a perfect brew for disaster. I think that part is definitely accurate. But I got more. Here. So this was, again, in the wake of the attack. This is what we get from this goofy-ass Fox News show.
In there. And she was not in San Francisco at the time, so no doubt she got a call, and it happened sometime in the middle of the night. We're going to get more details, we believe, this morning, and we will bring them to you.
So I believe, if I'm correct, Dana, their home is in Pacific Heights in San Francisco, which is, it's pretty high living, as you know, and they also have a home up in Napa Valley. This did not happen in Napa. It happened in San Francisco, according to the reporting. But you think about right now about crime and how we've been talking about this for the last 2 years. Lee Zeldin's a Republican candidate here in New York. About a month ago, he had a random shooting in his front yard where his 2 daughters were home. Point being, depending on how the circumstances of the story work out here, crime hits everybody.
Well, there was also remember the home intrusion and the robbery of the candidate in Los Angeles running for mayor. Her name is...
So you see what they're doing? They're trying to do just generic, this is a crime problem, and crime is a problem that's affecting everybody, and the Republicans are tough on crime, and Democrats, remember defund the police. Like, this is all what they're getting at here. And, what they're dodging, of course, is the inherently political nature of this attack. That's what they're dodging. And they're not going to want to address that, because that, there would be some things to say to the side of the aisle that they favor about, hey, maybe you guys need to bring down the temperature. Maybe you guys need not to prop up the extremist base that has effectively taken over the Republican Party at the grassroots level.
It's escaping me at the moment, but she also, remember, she had the gun stolen from her home.
Yeah, that's
we still
true.
don't have information about how that happened.
And 2 days ago, this guy walked into the headquarters for Katie Hobbs, who's running for governor in Arizona. He stole about $1,100 worth of computer equipment. They arrested him. So point being, this can happen anywhere. Crime is random, and that's why it's such a significant part of this election story.
Random.
It's interesting in the statement.
Random, he said.
The motivation for the attack against Paul Pelosi is under investigation.
Again, here's what we know. To be fair to them, I don't know if they knew this at the time, but here's what we know. The guy was up to his eyeballs in conspiracy stuff. He had gone full QAnon. He had gone full Pizzagate. So not only is look, an argument we make all the time on this show because it's true, is there are corrupt elites who have basically rigged the system to their benefit to screw over working people. That's a fact. But the QAnon types and the Pizzagate types, they go way further. They say there's a cabal of elites who are literally satanic, like they worship Lucifer, and they kill babies, rape babies, and drink their blood. And they can't wait for the storm, which is the day Donald Trump returns to power and basically kills all of his political enemies and does a nice little Holocaustington on the side to, be righteous and moral. This is what these people believe. And so it would be nice if every now and then Fox News could, I don't know, sort of debunk a lot of the more extremist stuff on the far right, which in some instances can lead to genuine extremism and literal physical violent attacks, instead of doing this whole, it's crime and crime is random and crime happens to everybody. All right, I got one more for you. Classic Jesse Waters saying and doing Jesse Waters things. Let's go.
What I want is that I want this alleged perpetrator to be treated the exact same way if he had attacked anybody else. Because a lot of people get hit with hammers. A lot of people get attacked. And a lot of the times they're out on bail the next day and it's a simple assault charge. So I don't know why this guy is being treated differently. And he's facing what? Attempted homicide. He's in prison right now. We see people assault people all the time randomly with all kinds of weapons, and we see them released the next day. So I don't know why this guy is getting all of a sudden special treatment or different.
Do you understand what he's arguing? He's saying because the left is soft and they're weak on crime and they want to like defund the police and stuff. If somebody commits an assault, a violent assault, they get released. There's no pretrial detention. And so they get released. And so this guy should be treated like everybody else. In other words, release him. That's what he thinks. Release him. That's the argument that he's making. The argument is not, hey, I'm not in favor of releasing violent criminals out of pretrial detention in other instances, so I'm not in favor of it in this instance. He's not saying lock up the other people and lock up this dude. He's saying, hey, treat him like everybody else. Namely, release him. Release him. So notice how big of a hack Jesse Waters has to be to make this argument. Because again, the argument he normally makes in instances where there's a violent criminal who's released because of pretrial detention, and he normally says, yeah, why would you ever let them out in the first place? Keep them locked up. But now in this instance, because this person attacked a member of the Pelosi family, it's, yeah, release him. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
Different treatment because the victim was so high profile. Remember, if you call on a welfare check, the left wants to send a social worker. What if
Joe Biden is the head of the Democratic Party and the president of the United States of America, and he wants to increase cops by 100,000. Now, there's a lot of people on the left that don't like that, and they will criticize Joe Biden over that because they have a different position. But the head of the Democratic Party is adding 100,000 more cops to the streets. The head of the Democratic Party wrote the crime bill, which was too tough on crime because it went after non-violent so-called criminals. They weren't really criminals, right? So this is just a bullshit, sleazy attack. You could count the number of Democrats who ran on defund the police on one fucking hand. And by the way, one of them won, Cori Bush, because she was from a district with a lot of police abuse. So again, his brain is fucking jello. It's oatmeal. He can't think of any issue as such. He has to make it some, let me score a point for my side, bro.
Social worker had come to this call. You would have had a dead husband and you would have had a dead...
By the way, nobody on the left says when there's a violent crime, send a social worker. People on the left say, some of them say, when there's a mental health problem that is not manifesting in a violent crime, so some psychological wellness check, thing of that nature, that's when you send somebody who's a social worker as opposed to a cop with a gun. So he's straw manning the position. Of course he is. He's Jesse Waters.
Social worker. That's why you have to have police, and I agree with Tyrus. Police responded right away, and they handled the situation. Thank God the police were there. And remember, the Democrats defunded the police in San Francisco. A big mistake, and they put the money back in, but these are the kind of mistakes we cannot keep making.
This guy was...
All right, so there you go. Nothing about, hey, this guy was all in on Pizzagate. This guy was all in on QAnon. This guy was an extremist conspiracy theorist, and a lot of the people I like kept feeding this paranoia and this conspiracy mindset. This guy was on the whole election was stolen nonsense, which Donald Trump pushes every single day. None of that. None of that. It's, the Republicans are tough on crime and Democrats are weak on crime, bro. That's what it is. So, classic partisan hackery, exactly what I'd expect from them. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.